Hey everybody, it is Greg Harrelson here with another episode of the Keeping It Real podcast. And of course, we have a lot to be thankful for, and one of those things is the fact that Real Geeks provides this platform, this Keeping It Real platform for us to bring on some extraordinary guests and have some fantastic real estate conversations, and hopefully, leave a lot of gold nuggets for you all to take back into your business. Today you see that I'm flying solo today. Of course, I have a guest, but usually my great friend as well as co-host Frank Klesitz is usually here with me, and Frank usually takes the lead, and I kind of chime in. But Frank is doing some travel. I actually believe, for those of you that know Frank well, I believe Frank is relocating to the East Coast. I think he's going to finally come over to the bright side of the United States, get on the East Coast from San Diego, and I think they're actually in the middle of their move right now. So unfortunately, Frank's probably have to deal with a lot of rain and a lot of wind from the tropical storm. So welcome to the East Coast, Frank, if you're listening. But we're going to go ahead and make this Keeping It Real episode work for all of us and keep this thing going. Today, I have a guest. And this guest is kind of special to me, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to introduce you in a moment to Steve. And Steve is a real estate agent out of Columbia, South Carolina, with a company called Century 21 Vanguard. The thing about this, my relationship with Steve, is I actually acquired Century 21 Vanguard, that real estate company, a couple years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, somewhere in that range. I acquired that company. It was an acquisition. I expanded outside of Myrtle Beach, and I went into Columbia, South Carolina. Steve happened to be one of the agents that was in that company when I did that acquisition. So we got to know each other. I took a personal interest, and I decided I was going to have to choose somebody to kind of coach within that organization. I chose him, he chose me. I'm not sure exactly who chose who, but we ended up connecting, started working closely, coaching together every week. And we're going to talk about where Steve was when we first started, where Steve is now, and most important, how a lot about that journey, and share with you what Steve did to really totally transform his business, not only just the number of transactions, but as you're going to hear, he was predominantly buyer-driven business, and now he's predominantly seller-driven business. And I know a lot of people would like to know, how in the world do you do that? So without going too far into the dialogue, let me introduce you to Steve Kozlowski. Steve, thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for, I think you're 10 minutes into this house that you're in somewhere up north, traveling during the storm with delays in airports. So I owe you a sweet tea and a cheeseburger when I go back to Columbia. But you probably don't eat cheeseburgers. You're too healthy for me.
No, I love cheeseburger.
Yeah. So, Steve, before we started, I said you've done some things that I will acknowledge are extraordinary, but at the same token, I think you and I both know that extraordinary results sometimes just comes from ordinary habits and ordinary routines. And when you do things over and over again, that's what's extraordinary, is the repetition of doing things over and over again that work, and then the results actually just appear. But let's walk it backwards and set the stage here. How long have you been in the business?
So June of this year was 4 years
Okay.
since I got my license.
Yeah.
But since you came on, it kind of feels like I've only been in the business 2 years. So
okay. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit. So 4 years licensed in the business in Columbia, and about 2 years ago, or let's just do you recall what your production is year one, year two? Do you have any idea? Can you remember?
Sure. Yeah. So it was under 20 the first full calendar year. And then I think when I had, it was hovering right around 20,
Yes.
The first 2 years. Like I think the first year was maybe like 17. The next year was 19.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
I knew something had to change.
Yeah. And what was the makeup? How were you getting business back then, and what was the makeup of the business, buyer versus sellers?
Sure. Yeah. I was on like the, Zillow lead team. It was more company driven leads. Get a call, go show the house, see if a deal happens. Friends that did want to buy. I was in an age group where, some of my friends were buying homes. But it was tough to rely on that to make a living.
Yeah.
So, but it was basically company leads and a few referrals from friends.
Yeah. And were the company leads were predominantly buyer leads? Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So out of the 17 deals and 19 deals that you did, so in those first 2 years, what percent of those deals would you say were buyer controlled sales versus listing controlled sales?
75% buyers.
75% buyers. Now, I don't want to just pass over the fact that your first year you did 17, second year you did 19. I don't want to just pass that over and not acknowledge that for a new licensee, that's actually good business. So you must be working hard. What did you do prior to real estate?
I worked at I went to school for civil engineering, and that got me a job at a nuclear site. That's what brought me
Wow.
to South Carolina. So, got hired at, if anyone knew about it, VC Summer nuclear plant. There were two new nuclear plants that were getting designed by Westinghouse, and it was the first time in 30 years in the United States that we're building them. A lot of red tape, didn't end well. I jumped ship before they laid 5,500 people off. So,
Wow. Wow. You
um,
know, I'm smiling because, I think of you, you're an engineer, right? You're analytical. But what I'm smiling about is like, I'm trying to figure out like, what was life like working with all these buyers, knowing that buyers buy off emotion, sellers sell off logic. And typically somebody who's a data head or an engineer type, they really don't make business decisions emotionally. They usually do it more logically, but you were a logical personality working with an emotional client. What was that like?
it was horrible. I had to catch in the beginning. I had to catch myself a couple times because I was not selling the home whatsoever. So basically, what I did was just be quiet. Just open up the door and be quiet because I'm going to point out everything that's wrong with the house.
Yeah. So in other words, you probably could have talked a lot of people out of buying.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that's a little off topic, but I just think that that's important here because you and I started working together, and I started coaching you on a weekly basis. Um, so where are you now? And then what I'm going to do is we just kind of laid the groundwork of where you are or where you were. Let's go ahead and make sure that we share with the audience where you are now within production, and then we're going to kind of bridge the gap between where you were and where you are, and kind of give them some ideas on how they can do the same thing if they wish. One of the questions that I have just to start off: how many transactions are you projected to close this year?
Just shy of, well, probably in the 80s,
About
but
in the 80s.
yeah, my
Yeah.
goal is 100. So I got to
Okay.
pick it up.
Yeah. Right. So, but the reality is that 80 or a little bit more is where you're going to end up. So that's a long stretch from 19 to now we're at 80. And out of your 80, what do you think your percent of buyer controlled sales versus listing controlled sales are now?
Close to high 80s and low 90s listings.
So you went from, I don't know, what did you say, 70% before it was buyers?
Yeah, right around there.
70% buyers to now you're doing 80 to 90% sellers. And all of this happened within like an 18-month period of time. That's what we need, Steve. We need to unpack that and share kind of like the journey between those things. And just in the last 30 days, how many listings would you say you had in just the last 30 days did you take?
Yeah, like 10 to 12.
10 to 12. And how many, and well, those were all listed sellers.
Yeah,
So
those were all
10 to
listed.
12. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so can you what's one of the first things, what are one of the first conversations that you and I had when we started? Because we had to, I was not going, my goal was not to make you anything. My goal was to listen to what you wanted to achieve and then figure out how to help you achieve it. In other words, work with you on building a blueprint or a business plan to achieve it. But going back when you were doing that 19 deals, what kind of transition were you hoping to make? What were you looking to accomplish?
Just wanted something better. I knew 19 deals, around 20 deals, wasn't going to cut it, like to make that career switch. I wanted more than that. And when you came down for one of the company meetings, I wasn't really sold. Like I was like more so of like, I'll just figure it out on my own, but that's my personality. I'll figure it out. I don't need help. And then basically you said, well, how many listings you get this week? It was like a Tuesday. And I was like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? And that made me, and then after that meeting, it made me think. I was like, why is he asking me that? And I was like, I had zero. I think I had zero for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it just kind of hit me where I was like, I need to just raise my hand and ask for help.
Okay.
And that's when I reached out to you and said, all right. And at that point, I just mentally was committed, like whatever he tells me to do, I'm going to do. Like whatever pain it causes, uncomfort, whatever, I'll just do it.
Yeah. So what are some of the first things that you did?
So you had me call for sale by owners, and I still remember being in the conference room, dialing, just punching in the numbers, and you said, I need you to call 6 people. And
oh, that's right. I
yeah,
forgot. Yes. Yeah.
that's the joke. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the
So
joke. Yeah. That I held you accountable to call in six for sale by owners. Yeah. A
that's
day.
how it started. And,
Yeah.
and after the first week, I had migraine or headaches. It hurt. And I wasn't getting a hold of people. It was painful. I was hoping they didn't answer. It was very uncomfortable for me. I did not like talking on the phone whatsoever.
I'm so glad you started with that. And the reason why is because I really want to put this and paint this picture for everybody because you're normal. Meaning, like, I don't know what you were told about the business when you got into the business, but whatever it is, you gravitated towards buyers, which is very, very common. And buyer leads are typically not having to be self-generated. They're usually generated by somebody, whether it be a Zillow or the company has websites or whatnot, right? So there's not a lot of lead generation in the area of working with buyers. There's a lot of lead servicing and follow-up and whatnot. So when somebody is going from, oh, I'm just going to work with these buyers who are technically calling me, to now I've got to go work with a seller and I've got to call them and they're not expecting me to call. And they're probably thinking that, that why is this real estate agent calling? Because I want to do it on my own. That's a major transition mentally. And the mental chaos and the mental chatter, that self-talk, makes that process physically challenging. In other words, it's really mentally challenging. There's nothing physically challenging about picking up the phone and dialing a for sale owner. But when you're the one doing it for the first time, it feels like it's a physical challenge, but the reality, it's a mental challenge. And then you say, oh, I go home and I had headaches and I was this. He said, yeah, that was a detox. I want people to hear that. That was the detox. And when if you eat a lot of bad foods and then you don't eat bad foods, sometimes you have headaches or some sort of, if you drink a lot of coffee and then you don't drink coffee, there's a detox effect. If you're drinking too much alcohol and you become an alcoholic and then you want to get off of alcohol, there's a detox factor. It happens in real estate in all walks of life. And that's really what I feel like you were going through. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. It was new. It was scary. And I still remember my parents saying, like, no one can hurt you over the phone. Like, I still remember that, but I never liked even answering the phone when it rang at the home at my house. Like, I was like, oh, I'll let my parents answer that, or let it go to voicemail. And now go figure,
You're the one calling them.
Yeah, I'm calling random people.
Yeah.
So it's and it took time. I mean, and then you would be like, oh, I'm getting this. And then no, you'd fall off the cliff, and have to go through it again. And then it was the consistency that, we built off of.
Yeah, yeah. So you started doing, six, basically calling for sale by owners.
Mhm.
And what was that like? Like, now all of a sudden you had to go on appointments. What were some of your biggest challenges besides maybe a little bit of call reluctance? But you obviously you remained consistent. But what were some of the challenges that you had to get over when working with for sale by owners?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm trying to really dig back to when that time was, just getting to connect with them. That was a big win for the first, few weeks or the couple weeks. And then I think I was so proud of getting emails and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I got emails." And you're like, "No, I need you to get on appointments." Like appointment way better than email. I was like, "No, but I can follow up with." So I was still reverting back to my old ways of just kind of like passively hoping they would reach out to me.
Yeah.
And then it finally switched. I was like, "No, I got to get an appointment." So then I started, like, whatever I did out of that day, just try to get an appointment. Well, I still remember my first FSBO that I got, and it was hard. It was this couple that, it was a wife handling the calls. Classic. She's kind of the liaison between who owns the property, which was her husband, and it was for their parent, or the in-laws that used to live there, and they've since moved out. And I met with them, and that was where I saw like the rubber meet the road, where they were not giving it to me whatsoever. And I just was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm just going to do something that I've never done before, and just be like, I think I just took out the piece of paper and I said, "Sign right here." Or something. It was something crazy and they were like, "No, no, no." Like, and I was like, and I kind of looked at him and was just like, "Well, why not?" And then but I was so outside my comfort zone, because I was kind of, hoping they would say, "Yeah, where do I sign?" And that just never is the case for the most part in the beginning. And then they were like, "All right." They looked at me, asked me a lot of personal questions, like, and I answered them all truthfully. And they were like, "All right, why don't you come back to the house and let's talk about this?" I was like, "Okay." I was like, "That's a good sign." So, and I got it at that point. And
Yeah.
it was one of the hardest closes too. Once I got them, and then I was really questioning why I'm even doing this. But you persevere and get through it and get the job done. And they are a client for life. So,
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's like, okay, there was this challenge. I don't want to call. I don't want to call. Okay, I called. Oh, wow, I talked to somebody. Now it's like, oh, I can talk to people. And then, oh, wow, I got an email.
yeah.
And then, so it went from, I don't want to call to I'm calling. Oh, I got somebody on the phone. Then it's like, oh, now I get people on the phone. Oh, now I'm getting an email. Oh, now that I get people on the phone and I get their emails, then it progresses to an appointment. It's like there's so many little small victories. Those are like stepping stones, right? That lead you up to this. So for people that are listening, it doesn't, you don't just teleport to the top. You take like one step at a time, and you guys sometimes acknowledge those small little victories. Like when you were bold and out of your comfort zone and you just said, why not? That was way out of your comfort zone. But when you got way out of your comfort zone that one time, then it wasn't so far out of your comfort zone the next time.
Right.
And you just kept building. So I think you said you took 10 to 12 listings in the last 30 days. How many of those were for sale by owners?
At least 50%.
Yeah, 50%. Because we're talking to you. It sounded like you took about 6 for sale by owners, and then 2 of the other listings you took, I think you said, were referrals from past for sale by owners. So technically, 8 out of your last 10 to 12 in the last 30 days really are a result from for sale by owners. That is extraordinary. So let's continue though. So you got your first for sale by owner listing. You're making your 6 contacts. You got your first for sale by owner listing. How long did it take you to get that listing from the time you started really saying, okay, I'm going to start working these for sale by owners?
How long did it take to start consistently
Before
doing
you
that?
before you got your first listing, from the time that you first started working, how long
Oh,
did it take before you got that first one?
I would say maybe right, like for my first buyer because I joined, say, July, I got it under contract in a month's time, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. When we started, I would say 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. So you
So
started
it
for
was
some
shorter.
owners.
It was a shorter time
Yeah.
frame.
So 2 to 3 weeks later, you get it. Okay. And then, so what's the next step? Now you got your first one. What would you say is your next? First of all, where are you getting the FSBO information? Because some people are going to want to know, is he using Vulcan? Is he using RedX, Land Voice? Where were you getting the for sale owners information?
Zillow.com.
Yeah, yeah, for free. It's right there. It's right there. It's published. They actually, the owners and Zillow publishes that information. Okay, so that answers that. And so what was the next step? You got your first listing. Then how did you? What was your next thing that I would say you implemented or learned that helped you get to the next level?
So then I was getting some confidence built to say, okay, I can go on an appointment. They can trust me enough to hire me. Let me try to do some more. Like, so it was still keeping those 6 contacts every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was getting like, let's try to at least get, a couple appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was basically where I was learning that I was going on the appointments and I was striking out every time. And I had no idea why that was happening. And it was a couple tweaks here and there of just asking, learning how to ask for the business, even though that kind of came more down the road. I would say like last year, where I was really recognizing, hey, did I even ask for the business? So it wasn't at that point yet. It was where I left off from leaving the appointment. That really was the big jump, where I think it was in the fall of 2019. That's when, we started fall of 2019, starting to call. And I went on 4 appointments in one day. And that was that's still a lot right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but my appointments were like an hour and a half because I would just keep talking to them and trying to like wait for them to say, hey, sign, let's sign. And it never transpired on all 4.
Mm-hmm.
But the one move I made to kind of change that was I sent them the paperwork. I said, well, I'm going to send you this paperwork. Look at it.
You mean after? So you went on an appointment and you
Yeah.
had this long conversation and then you sent it afterwards?
Yeah, I sent it. Like, I wasn't getting it in person, so I didn't know what to do. I was just like, but I'm going to send it to you. Like, and you're going to review it and then we're going to talk. And because it was like a Hail Mary of getting rejected, but I still was like trying to keep it going. And by doing that, it kind of opened up another door to being like, oh, okay. So if I'm not getting it, I have this to go to now. And then a week later, someone called me up and said, once those 4 never panned out, by the way, but I did it again and that one did. So it kind of opened my eyes going like, okay, this isn't so many people say a one and done, like you got it, you go there. If you don't get it, hey, forget about them. Like, no, don't forget about them. I've gotten so many listings after the fact. And that really kind of just propelled me to go, okay, it's not, if you don't get it in that one go, keep going. So that kind of gave me some more confidence to be like, yeah, I'm not that good right now to get the signature, but at least let's keep the ball in play and see if they come back. It is passive, but it's kind of putting the ball in their court. And now I get another excuse to give them a call.
Yeah. So, I remember all this, or not every detail, but I remember the term passive. I just remember that. It's like, wow, yeah, you were very passive, but that's okay. This is all part of a process.
Mm-hmm.
This is all part of the process. So let's fast forward and talk about now, okay? Because you're getting a lot of listings. I mean, I don't remember. I think it was 4 last week that you said, and then maybe 4 the week before. And this is a time of in our market where a lot of agents have given up on trying to get listings. It's like, well, every for sale owner sells on their own. and I know your market because I'm in your market. I know your market, and for sale by owners do have success like they have in every market. Um, how are you increasing the number of for sale by owners that you're listing at a time where the number of for sale by owners that are successfully selling on their own is also increasing? It doesn't make any sense, and it's not going to make any sense to anybody that's listening to this. It's like, how's he getting more for sale by owners at a time where most people are saying that no, there's less for sale by owners to get? What is your answer to that?
So you just keep calling every day. Like that is, I will admit, like for sale by owners is my main pillar. Like,
Yes.
There's very few expireds coming on. I still call them, but like for sale by owners has become my bread and butter, and I haven't really deviated from it. It's been, I can talk to them. I can, just see, just kind of see what's going on with them. See if I can
Well,
help.
what makes you good at why are you good at for sale owners? And don't be afraid to
Sure.
talk about yourself in that way. I mean, really, because you are doing great things. Why are you good at for sale owners?
Because I talk to them like a normal person, and I know they can sell it on their own. I tell that to them. I say, hey, I know you can sell it on your own. I just want to see how I can help you.
So like if I'm a for sale owner and I say, I don't really need anybody, I think I can just sell it on my own. What would you say to that?
Like, no doubt, Greg, you totally can.
Yeah.
But
So you're not going to fight me.
No, I agree with you. It's true. It's facts. For sale by owners are selling right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know deep down inside, I can give them a better service and product and, more money in their pocket at the end of the day. And It's a belief. I think that's the experience of, helping so many for sale by owners, being, having them hire me and actually seeing the results at the end of the day, from, pricing strategy to servicing to making sure they're not taken to the cleaners during inspections, and making sure that even the little details at closing, from HOA prorations to tax prorations to all those little details that everyone forgets about. I look at that to make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to be getting. And I mean, there's been several times for sale by owners have been, oh, that capital contribution that was on the state contract, not our contract. So I, help my client pocket an extra $1,000. Like little stuff like that they don't even, they don't know, the consumer doesn't even realize.
So a lot of people are going to, listen to this and say, Steve, well, I hear you. You're saying that you can get them more money. They can sell it on their own. You can sell it for them. But you're saying that one of the things, besides the service that you provide, you can get them more money. And some people are going to say, oh, that's just a sales pitch. Do you have examples that you've done that?
Yes. Yeah. I bring it to me on the appointments. Half the time I don't even have to show them. I can just talk to them.
So can you give us can you recall a time that you could share with us and just kind of walk us through, briefly the numbers, not how you got it sold, but like how you really can, with confidence, look somebody in the eyes and tell them, yes, I know you can sell it on your own. I'm not going to argue with that. But the reality is I can sell it also, and it's more likely I can put more money in your pocket. So assuming you say something like that, how would you be able to back that up?
Yeah, so I'll give you a most recent one. And this was more front end. I can give you others that are more like in detail, like in the beginning, to where like the inspections occur and how we can save money there. But just this one just closed, I want to say last week or a couple weeks ago. It was a for sale by owner, rainy night, didn't want to go over there. It was late at night. I was like, sure, let's do it. Those are the best ones, by the way. Just go on those appointments. Whenever that happens, just go on them. Yeah. Talk to them. It was like a couple days on the market. It's priced, in my opinion, and I know the neighborhood because I just sold one in there. It was priced like 20 grand too high. I didn't think it was going to appraise. And that's another thing that we can talk about is the exposure and why it's important to have an agent when there's appraisal issues. So talk to them. I said, trying to feel them out of what they're trying to accomplish. Well, they held information from me saying they had a full price offer. And I was very open to it. I said, hey, if you have an offer right now that, you know, that you've dealt with, that you've shown the property 10 times, and that, you know, you get an offer from that, hey, don't hire me. I'll exclude you, you know, from the agreement. No big deal. And they were like, well, we like you, Steve. We hear what you're saying about giving us more exposure. That's what we want. But and I'll hire you. So let's sign that right now. But you will exclude that if I have anything, you know. I said, yeah, sure, that's fine. He's like, well, I got a full price offer. You want to take? You want, you know? Do you want to look at it? That now that I'm a client of yours. I said, yeah, I'll at least find out if it's legit. And he's like, I got a bird in the hand, Steve. I got a bird in the hand. I still remember him saying this. He's like, come up to my office. He's like, I had a bird in the hand. And I'm reading through it. And I'm like, what's this contingency? What's this contingency? I said, you don't have a bird in the hand. I said, you got like an empty nest. And he was like, what are you talking about? He's like, can you at least work this for me? Like, we'll pay you. We'll pay you, you know, to represent us for this. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to the agent, but this is not what we accept in this market right now. This is a horrible offer. And they're only going after you because you're for sale by owner and don't have the maximum exposure that I can bring. And he was like, you're just trying to get me to the market and make more money. And I'm like, hey, I would rather just work this one out, make a quick buck and move on, and just, you know, and not have to deal with the market, because the market's aggressive, you know, with all the offers that come in. But I said, I know that's not the best for you. He's like, he had a, you know, couple hours to think about it. He says, all right, Steve, go for it. So we go on the market, leave the price the exact same, 260. Like I said, way overpriced. We get multiple offers. One goes 15,000 higher, which is in Columbia, that's a lot. Just to, you know, I know there's people from all over. Like Columbia, that's a big deal. 15, 20,000 over is a big deal. And then we negotiate an appraisal gap. Because I was prepping him. I was like, it's not going to appraise. I've been wrong before, but there's a very high certainty that it's not going to appraise. I said, so we have to work on this appraisal gap. For sale by owners don't know about appraisal gaps. They don't know how to even write them. So basically there's, in every market, I think there's, you know, if it's hot enough, there's going to be something there that the buyer's agent will come up with to be competitive, but there's always more that an agent can provide, is what I'm learning. So we did that. It ended up not appraising, but we had a $7,500 appraisal gap, which made up the difference. And he got the house way more than what my commission was. I think my commission was like 8,000 or something like that, and I netted him almost 15,000 more
after you got this. So real quick though, for those that don't know what an appraisal gap is, can you explain that?
Sure. So like in a hot market like we are right now, we have appraisal issues. I'm dealing with one just this morning where the prices have jumped up where the comps don't support it. So in that sense, we don't want the seller in our contract, in our market. There's a contingency where they can part ways if, you know, either party doesn't want to bring money to the table, or, you know, seller doesn't want to drop the price, buyer doesn't have to bring the price up. So we've now been negotiating for the sellers to bring money to the table from the
buyers,
front end.
the buyers,
buyers from the front end to the table to make up that difference in the event it doesn't hit the purchase price.
Yeah. So if the property doesn't appraise, then you've already got the buyer obligated by contract to bring more money to the table to still move forward, even if the property doesn't appraise. Now, you may put a limit on that for the buyer. The buyer would want to put some sort of limit on it. In this case, you did $7,500. So for those of you that are listening right now, I just love how Steve is very transparent with for sale by owners and telling them you can sell it on your own. There's no question. But now the key is Steve can sell it also. Steve is more likely to protect you from issues, because if that guy would have went through that other contract, there would have been issues. That property probably would have fell through. So not only did you protect them there, you protected him on the appraisal gap. You got the thing closed. He nets more money after paying you. Mm-hmm. In this hot market, these stories still exist with for sale by owners. But the real estate agents a lot of times haven't heard these scenarios. They don't, they don't believe these scenarios, and so therefore they don't really go after for sale owners. But you're accelerating the amount of business that you're doing within the for sale by owner segment. So let me ask you this: if you were talking to somebody, maybe a newer agent, and they were where you were in the beginning. You're working tirelessly with all these buyers, wishing that you actually had a more listing-based business, no clue exactly where to start, kind of where you were. What are a few tips that you would give somebody that may want to do what you've done?
Yeah, I think what I would tell them is just be okay not getting business right away. Just don't set the expectations like, oh, I need to go on an appointment every week. Like, just start. And then I think I personally gave myself, like, I'm just going to figure this out. However long it takes, I'm going to figure it out. And maybe maybe in my mind, that was like 6 months. If I don't make it a dollar for 6 months, like, I'm going to give it 6 months. And just like, I think you got to be okay with just being like, hey, if I don't make anything from doing this, just give it your all. Just like, see what happens. Don't be afraid. Oh no, I'm not, because I'm not getting on appointments, or I'm getting rejected on appointments. It's all part of it. And, you will get one under your belt and you'll be like, wow, that was cool. Let's try to do it again. And then it's like just putting the pieces together. And it is an uphill battle, but yeah, just those experiences will just create confidence for you for the next one.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I'm wondering if, like, because for most people won't know, but you played collegiate golf, and a few things that you've said today, and it's making me think of like other conversations we've had throughout the year. It's like sometimes you just go for it and it doesn't work, but then you're like, okay, I'm just going to keep going for it and figuring it out, right? Kind of like imagine playing golf. Like if you were to hit a putt and on this green, and you were hit this putt and practice green, and you're hitting this putt and you miss it 2 feet long. Well, what do? You hit the same putt and you make an adjustment, and then you hit it to the right, you hit it short, you keep making it's really a series of adjustments.
Right.
And but you have to just initially take action. And in some sense, you have to almost miss multiple times in order to dial in that putt. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, that's in my mind. I can imagine you as a younger kid on the golf course, like just dialing in that shot. Like, okay, I hit that one to the left. Well, I hit that one to the right. Well, I hit that one a little less left. I hit that one short. Wow, I hit it exactly where I wanted. Mm-hmm. You seem to demonstrate that in real estate. And I think that's pretty cool. And I wanted people to hear that, because I like what you're sharing. Hey, listen, go out there, just take the steps. Don't have expectations that you're going to drain the putt on the first shot. It's mm-hmm. not about getting the listing the first one you go on. It's a matter of going on multiple appointments, making multiple calls, going on multiple appointments, making multiple adjustments, and finding your groove, finding your rhythm.
Right.
That's 100%. Pretty cool. So you're going to be right around that 80 deals this year. So congratulations. That's a lot. Obviously it's not triple figures. And so we are working on 100 deals, because we want you to,
it's not out of the question. Or
No.
no, like this year.
Yeah, it's not out of the question. Is there anyone in the Columbia market that is a solo agent? Because really, what do you, well, first of all, so people don't understand, are you a team?
No.
No. And how many staff do you have?
One.
Okay, so it's you and one staff. I think her name's Chloe, right?
Correct.
You and one staff, and Chloe's doing a wonderful job. You and one person is all. So you're a solo agent. Is there anyone in the market that's doing 100 deals or more that's a solo agent? Because I know there's teams and everyone talks about, oh yeah, I'm doing 200 transactions, but usually it's a team of 10 or something like that.
I should know this, but I don't know if
Yeah.
there's an actual true solo agent. I think there's a couple that are right around that 100, but there are other licensed individuals in that group. So
Yeah,
I don't
like the
know if
buyer's agents and things
I don't
like
know if
that.
that's
Yeah.
contributing or not to that. But no, there's very few. If you were to, yeah, there's very few.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, because I don't know if you recall, but when I came into Columbia and I looked at the makeup of the company and I looked at the makeup of the market, I said to myself, I have got to find somebody that I can help develop into 100+ transactions as a solo agent, because that market doesn't have anything like that. Like everyone's trying to get to the 100 deal mark by assembling a team.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to understand, and that's great. I mean, that's a different business model. That's not good or bad. But, as a solo agent doing 100 deals with one assistant, you can be extremely profitable. You can actually start putting some money away. And that's like the ultimate goal. So like for me and you, Steve, like what we're doing together, and you're really doing all the heavy lifting, believe it or not, you're paving the way for other people to actually believe that much more is possible for them. Now, a lot of agents don't want to pave the way because they think, well, then that means I got all these people chasing me. I would rather you be chased than be chasing. And that's probably going to be what we experience for the rest of your career, is people will be chasing you. And that's okay. That's good, because I think there's something to say for you to go out there and create something extraordinary and shine the light on the marketplace on what's possible, because there'll be other newbies that'll come in and make beautiful careers for themselves because of the examples that you're setting. So I just wanted to say that it's a big deal. But what's next for you?
What, 100 deals or what?
Are you asking, interviewing me now or what?
I'll keep it at 100 deals. Yeah.
Okay.
100,
Yeah.
100
100
deals.
deals.
And we've talked about it too. It's like, we got goals and we got, life and everything. So like, you got to balance that too, and still try to, how do you accomplish that and still have a heck of a time doing it? So like
well, let's finish that for a minute. Let's finish with this last thought, or that last conversation. So what are we talking about? Because you've been working hard. You've been putting some time in, and you're getting calls all the time and all this other stuff because you've got inventory. Yeah. And so one of the next steps, I think, is to continue to grow your business, but make sure that you actually have a personal life that's designed by you. You take vacations, you actually learn how to set up your systems to shut things off, so you can literally go. You went somewhere recently. You went to wine country, I think.
Oh yeah, Napa.
Napa. Yeah. And you didn't do a lot of work, I don't think, at that time, did you?
That one, all right, I'll admit to everybody.
You did?
That one I did. There was some bad deals on that one that went. Okay. But let's talk about the Bahamas, because that was awesome, where I did not bring my phone with me.
Wow.
And that was I hadn't done that since I got my license.
Yeah.
So that was an incredible feeling. And when I work to talk about what we're working towards, I want to work hard and have it not turn into more time and energy and work while I'm trying to enjoy myself or enjoy, vacation. I want to translate it into I bust my butt, work really hard, and then I can take time off
Yeah.
and actually enjoy that time and then hit the ground running when I come back. And I think that's where I'm at right now, is like, that's what I really want to work on next, is how do I just have that high energy, keep pushing forward, hitting the goals we want, but then when it's time to shut off, let's shut off and
So we're
regroup.
optimizing. We're going to continue to optimize, and because there's not a lot of things that are broke within your business, but there's a lot of things that we can tweak and optimize in every business, right? So if we just take 10 different things and we just improve it by like 1 degree or 1%, the accumulation effect of all of that is extraordinary. And that's really what I'm looking for with you. It's like, okay, now it's how do we get to 100 deals? Then it's okay, how do we get to more than 100 deals, but feel like we're only working as if we're doing 20 deals?
Right.
That's a real challenging for most people. Most people think that in order to continue to grow, they have to give up their life. I actually believe it's easier to do 100 plus deals than it is to do 60 deals, but it's systems that we have to put in place. And I think that's exactly where we are. And that's what we're going to focus on. Well, Steve, I tell you what, I really appreciate you taking the time and appreciate you sticking in it with all the traveling that you did. Are you on Facebook? You're on Facebook, right, Steve?
I am.
Yeah, so I'd say if anybody wants to reach out to Steve, I'm not going to ask him to give his cell number because that could be a little bit overwhelming. But you can find him and message him on Facebook and ask him a question or two. But congratulations for what you did. And for those of you, oh, by the way, we didn't even talk about it, but because you're within one of my offices, you are a user of Real Geeks. And I know market activity reports, sold reports, and things like that. You're using it more for the automation to nurture a database than you are for buyers, because you're not working that many buyers. But for those of you that are out here listening, if you have not did a demo, if you're not a Real Geeks user, you ought to check out Real Geeks. Do a demo with them. I have around 8 or 9 websites with them because I'm in multiple markets. And I've been with them for many, many years, and we run thousands of transactions through that website. So it's been a blessing to my business. It's definitely been an important tool that's helped me scale. So I recommend everyone check that out. Steve, thanks for keeping it real, and we'll talk soon.
All right. See you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.